Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in his first full day in the Oval Office. It was a busy one for President Donald Trump. He met with Republican congressional leaders yesterday, announced a $500 billion AI infrastructure investment in the U.S., in addition to signing a flurry of executive actions that will impact policy related to climate, immigration, tech, and so much more. Trump's actions on immigration, which included declaring a national emergency at the southern border, will prompt a widespread crackdown, we're told. The administration will permit federal immigration authorities to arrest people and carry out enforcement actions in places such as churches and schools. Meanwhile, 24 Democrat states and cities are suing over Trump's bid to end birthright citizenship. This will probably be a prolonged legal battle among the various left-leaning groups who are trying to protect people who are in our country illegally. Convicted U.S. Capitol protesters, including Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes, continued to be released from prison after President Trump's sweeping pardons and commutations on Monday. We have the latest on that, and he's getting some pushback from some of the Republican members of the U.S. Senate. And best of all, Trump ordered government diversity, equity, and inclusion offices to go dark. Federal DEI employees will be placed on administrative leave effective immediately, according to the White House, which also announced details on an executive order ending DEI consideration at all levels of the federal government, including federal hiring. Again, it was a busy day. We've got a lot to cover.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
So where do you start after the first full day of Trump 2.0? The Trump administration has begun its mass deportation operation, according to Tom Homan, the newly appointed border czar. Speaking on America's Newsroom, Homan confirmed that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE teams, are actively executing the plan as part of the administration's broader immigration crackdown.
Let's bring in the new border czar to the president, Tom Homan, also the former acting ICE director. So, Tom, we were expecting, based on your initial schedule, that today roundups of criminal illegal aliens in the process of deporting them would begin. That seems to have been put on hold for a little while. When can we expect that to happen? Where will it begin?
No, it started. It
has started.
ICE teams are out there as of today. We gave them the direction to prioritize public safety threats that we're looking for. So we've been working up the target list. There was some discussion about Chicago because the specific operational plan was released. So we had to look at and reevaluate, does this raise officer safety concerns? And it does. Mm-hmm. But we've addressed that, and teams are out there effective today.
So critics were saying, okay, you're going to round up people's abuela, their grandmother, and ship them back to where they emigrated from. Who are the people that you're targeting, at least in this initial phase?
Right out of the gates, public safety threats. Those who are in the country illegally that's been convicted or arrested for a serious crime. But let me be clear. It's not only public safety threats that will be arrested, because in sanctuary cities, we're not allowed to get that public safety threat in the jail, which means we got to go to the neighborhood and find him. And when we find him, he may be with others. And unlike the last administration, we're not going to tell ICE officers not to arrest an illegal alien. So if they find others, they'll be arrested. So sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want: more agents in the neighborhood and more collateral arrests.
Wonder how the blue city mayors are going to explain that to some of the illegal neighborhoods. Holman emphasized that the operation's initial focus is on individuals deemed public safety threats, meaning they're here illegally, first of all, but secondly, they have broken our law once they got here. Not the law of coming into our country illegally, but other laws, traffic laws, murders, robberies, assaults, specifically those who are in the U.S. illegally who have been convicted or arrested for serious crimes, are going to be targeted. It's not as he said, it's not the grandmas and the families. It's people who have broken our laws once they arrived here illegally. Holman noted that sanctuary city policies pose significant hurdles for ICE in cities where local law enforcement does not cooperate with the federal ICE agents. Well, they're going to have to go into the neighborhoods and round them up themselves, which, as he said, is going to cause collateral arrest, meaning there's going to be a lot more people arrested because these cities have tried to shield these people from the ICE agents. If they would just turn them over as soon as they are released from jail, it'd be a lot better for everybody. But they're not going to do that. They're not smart enough to understand what's about to happen. The operation follows DHS's directives that rescinded a 2021 memo by former DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, which had created so-called protected areas where immigration enforcement actions were restricted. Now, think about that for a minute. We have some of these cities, these blue cities, telling federal agents that they can't arrest people who are here illegally, who have broken our immigration laws. So, yes, some of these areas may have schools there. There may be hospitals. There could be churches. But again, let me ask you this. If you're sitting in church and there's a bank robber sitting in the sanctuary with you, are you going to object to the police arresting that bank robber in your church? I don't think so. A memo that was issued Monday clarified that while discretion and common sense would guide ICE officers, the restrictions on enforcement locations have been lifted. It's not necessary for the head of the agency to create bright line rules regarding where our immigration laws are permitted to be enforced, the new directive says. Reports surfaced last week, of course, of a planned ICE operation in Chicago starting today as part of the Trump-issued national emergency. Well, that didn't happen initially because they want to keep these ICE agents safe. And if they know that you're coming, it's not so safe. And this is probably what they're going to deal with. Unfortunately, until Tom Holman and other Trump appointees are able to get into these agencies and weed some of these people out, there's probably going to be some issues initially. Because just because Donald Trump was sworn in as president on Monday doesn't mean that all these bureaucrats whom Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have put into place are going to get in line or going to cooperate. So there's going to be some weeding out to be done. This whole operation, the whole idea of deporting people has sparked a lot of mixed reactions. Advocates for stricter immigration enforcement have praised it, viewing it as a long overdue measure to uphold the rule of law. Critics, however, like AOC and Senator Chuck Schumer, they've expressed concerns about the impact on immigrant communities and potential disruptions caused by the crackdown. Well, there may be some pain. There may be some disruptions. But in the end, our country is going to be better off, right? President Trump also announced a groundbreaking public-private initiative involving several big tech companies, SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle, aimed at creating the most extensive artificial intelligence infrastructure project in the country's history and probably in the world's history. Dubbed Stargate, the venture will see a $100 billion initial investment to build AI data centers across the U.S. with plans to expand that to $500 billion over the next 4 years during the Trump Trump 2.0. Larry Ellison, who is the founder of Oracle, described the project as transformative, especially in healthcare, which is what really got my attention. Speaking on Special Report with Bette Baer, Ellison said, "This is a very large investment that affects all of humanity." He elaborated that the technology could lead to significant advancements in medicine, including vaccines to prevent cancer, personalized medicine, and early warnings for pandemics. He said, "We'll never again face something like COVID-19 without early warning." He underscored how AI-powered solutions could provide proactive responses to emerging health crises. As I understood it, and I listened to him explain this, with the AI infrastructure, we will be able to predict potential health issues that you could have. And AI would help us come up with the proper treatments before you ever even got sick. The project brings together some of the leading tech pioneers, Oracle, who will contribute its cloud computing infrastructure. SoftBank will inject substantial capital. Its CEO, Masayoshi Son, emphasized the need for big investments for the betterment of humanity. OpenAI, led by Sam Altman, will provide its expertise in the AI development itself, with a focus on ensuring the technology's responsible and ethical revolution. Altman noted that the scale of the project reflects the transformative potential of AI. He said it wouldn't have been obvious that this was possible. I think with a different president, it might not have been possible. Well, I can tell you that I don't know much about AI other than the limited exposure I've had to it, but I can promise you that Joe Biden could have never envisioned this. It was a busy day, folks. It was a good day, and we're off to day number 3. There's a lot of talk about making America great again, and it begins with making America healthy again. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss are at the forefront to educate and guide you to be your best self. The millions being spent in propping up Big Pharma are astounding, only to create long-term dependency and harmful side effects. Let's take a natural approach that isn't connected to a pharmaceutical company's bottom line. The coaches at PhD Weight Loss will show you how. The entire program is centered around science and nutrition, a proven roadmap that has helped over 8,000 clients lose over 331,000 pounds. You'll learn what to eat and when, how to quiet cravings, and finally get rid of that belly fat. Plus, you'll never take a medication. How many pounds would you like to lose in 2025? Do it the natural way with PhD Weight Loss, here to lead the charge to make America healthy again. Call PhD Weight Loss and schedule your consultation. 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. Continuing today's show, President Trump taking very decisive action on a lot of different issues yesterday, but particularly to reshape the federal workforce and reverse some of the key policies of the Biden administration, some of the failed policies, I might add, of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. As the president was wrapping up his first full day in office yesterday, he had one last order, and that was a sweeping directive to close all diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility offices across federal agencies. And get this, the deadline, today. He didn't say think about it. He didn't say study it. He said close DEI by Wednesday at 5 p.m. Today's the deadline, with employees in those roles placed on paid administrative leave until their agencies can decide what to do long term. Agencies must also dismantle any DEI-related media. They have to cancel any associated training and terminate DEI-related contracts. This comes in response to President Trump's executive order repealing Biden's 2021 initiative to embed DEI programs in the federal workplace. Now, just think for a minute how much money Joe Biden has cost us. He spent millions and millions of dollars instituting these types of policies, hiring DEI officers, hiring people who weren't even qualified to be working for the federal government to begin with, but putting them in place as a diversity, equity, inclusion officer, giving them a posh job. Most of them didn't even know what they were doing. Now, after almost 4 years, and they wasted our money because they in turn started hiring other people to help them put these programs into place. Now we got to pay to unravel all this crap. And that's what it is. It's just a bunch of junk that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came up with. Federal agencies are being asked to identify any attempts to disguise DEI programs under alternative labels or language, and I can promise you they'll try that. These people will stop at nothing. So they're going to try to go underground. They're going to try to change their identities. They're going to try to change the job description. Look, right now, and I hate it, now's not a good time to have DEI as part of your title or your job description in the federal government. If you were the executive director of DEI or whatever, you might want to have some new business cards printed. You might want to change your email signature, because once you're identified, you're going to have to be looking for a new job, as you should. This was the most asinine program of the many that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came up with. So here's what's going to happen. These agencies, they have to submit detailed reports to the Office of Personnel Management, including list of DEI personnel, list of contracts, and plans to comply with the new executive orders. These measures ensure that no remnants of these programs remain in the federal government. They're out. Ended. Period. No explanation. No arguments. No studying. Just eliminated. In line with another of President Trump's executive orders, it's now official U.S. government policy to recognize only two genders, male and female. Now, you'd think it's crazy that we have to have an executive order telling us that God only made boys and girls, but because of the craziness over the past 4 years, that's exactly what we had to have. An executive order to say they're little boys and they're little girls. They grow up to be men and women, and that's it. There's nothing in between. This directive affects all federal documentation, identification, and policies. Influencers and conservative commentators have held this as a victory for what they call truth and biological reality. And common sense, I'm going to add. Again, it's sad that our federal government was ever put in this position. But it was, and now we're going to have to undo it. By this Friday, by the end of the first week, agency heads must present reduction in force plans for DEI employees and detail any attempts to obscure DEI initiative under different titles. You can't change the name of it. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. These steps aim to ensure full compliance with the administration's commitment to what it calls restoring merit-based government. In other words, if you're qualified to do a job and you apply for it, doesn't matter what sex you are, whether you're a male or a female, doesn't matter the color of your skin. What matters is that you're able to do the job, that you're qualified to do the job, as it should always be. President Trump promised sweeping reforms to dismantle what he called the woke bureaucracies of the federal government, and he's delivering quickly. Now, rest assured, and don't misunderstand this, there's going to be resistance. There's going to be bureaucrats who are going to try their best to fight this. So even though he has said it's got to be done by Friday, I don't mean to be pessimistic here, but it's probably not going to happen, because there's going to be some agencies, yes, but there's going to be some who, are going to go underground. They're going to try their best to be disruptive. These changes are going to spark a lot of debate. But for now, the administration is moving full steam ahead to reverse policies it says were eroding America's core principles. And yes, that's exactly what they were doing. And they were destroying our federal government at the same time. They were destroying the effectiveness of so many of our federal agencies and the service that they provide for us, what we're hiring them to do. Just another example, folks, of how Donald Trump is going to put common sense back into our government. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance attended the National Prayer Service at the Washington National Cathedral yesterday. They started their day there. It's a traditional event. It marks the start of a new presidential term. However, the service took a controversial turn when the Right Reverend Marianne Budde, known for her previous criticism of Trump, delivered a politically charged sermon. If this had been a conservative pastor, the left-wing media would be standing on their head right now, but you probably have heard very little about this. Miss Buddy from the Episcopal Diocese of Washington initially emphasized unity, urging Americans to build bridges across divides. It sounded good. But then her remarks turned pointed as she addressed issues like immigration and LGBTQ rights, directly appealing to the president, calling him out to show compassion and mercy. Here's her remarks.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation. But the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, Buddha, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome people. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we will all want strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world.
All I can say is wow. Wow. Now, let me just go over a couple of things that she hit on there, because the audio on that, it's a huge church, the Washington Cathedral. Beautiful church. Been there many times. So let me just make sure you understood what she was saying. She said at one point, there are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in families across the political spectrum, some who fear for their lives. She said the vast majority are not criminals, talking about undocumented immigrants now. They pay taxes, and they're faithful members of our communities. Now, let me just sum this up for you. She was fear-mongering at its best. When she talks about people in the LGBTQ community fearing for their lives, shame on her. Shame on her for being so divisive from the pulpit. Now, if you watched any of this, if you've seen the video, her comments irked Trump and Vance. You could see the vice president leaning over to whisper to the second lady during the address. You could see his eyes looking around. You could see the president. At one point, he just looked exasperated. And you could see the Trump family behind him. They all start looking around when she started, because you knew what was coming. Trump, of course, who had emphasized traditional views on gender and a crackdown on illegal immigration in his inaugural address, pretty much took it good, I think. What he probably should have done was got up and walked out. But maybe that's a bit extreme. This lady was out of order. And the Episcopal Church should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of her, of this bishop. And this is coming from someone, me, who's been part of the Episcopal Church for 25 plus years. Representative Mike Collins, Republican from Georgia, criticized Buddy's remarks, posting on X, "The person giving this sermon should be added to the deportation list." Now, yes, that's extreme, but he makes a good point. She was totally out of line. Some defended her stance, noting that her consistent advocacy for social justice and equality. But still, she can believe that personally, and that's fine. But to stand there and almost call the president of the United States out in her church, no, that was totally inappropriate. And I hope that the Episcopal Church will do something about it. I hope that they're embarrassed of her actions. Trump's inaugural address, of course, delivered on Monday, had emphasized a return to traditional values. Now, you would not think that would be in conflict with the church, but it was. It is, evidently, with this Episcopal bishop. In his inauguration, he said there are two genders, male and female, and promised to eliminate birthright citizenship for children of illegal immigrants and end race and gender-based government policies. These are issues that the American people were very clear on November the 5th. Most Americans do not agree with these type issues. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pushed the Democrat Party so far to the left, I don't know that they can return. And the president's stance on these issues starkly contrast with Miss Buddy's call for inclusivity and compassion. And for her to say that there are people scared, that they're fearful for their life, shame on her for bringing that up. Shame on her for just fueling that fear. No one should fear for their life, and I don't think they do or should. They certainly don't have a reason to. Miss Buddy obviously is totally missing what the American people said. She's completely ignoring all the opinion polls that show a clear majority of Americans do not support changing one's gender, and particularly kids, these children who are getting these surgeries, who are being given hormone treatment that can never be reversed. Most Americans agree with the president. That just shows you how far out of touch she is, though. God made boys and God made girls. Miss Buddy knows this, but was using her pulpit to divide the nation and to use these scare tactics. Because no one, again, should have to be fearful. Look, if you are a man and you want to walk around, parade around in a woman's dress, that's fine. Just don't force me or try to force me to acknowledge that it's normal, because it's not. And Americans are just tired of having these lifestyles forced on us. So don't expect me to think it's okay for my federal tax dollars to be used by federal agencies to force these types of beliefs onto me and my family. It's okay for you to live like that if you want to. I'll defend your right as an American to do so. If you're a man who wants to wear a woman's dress, you have that right to do so. You don't have the right to make me believe that it's okay, that God is okay with you living that lifestyle. So just don't try to spend my tax dollars on changing a normal world to accommodate your odd desires. In an open letter to the bishop in response, this was published on pjmedia.com. Lincoln Brown kind of summed it up pretty good. He said, Bishop Buddy, if LGBTQ people are afraid, it is largely because of the rhetoric that anyone opposed to transgenderism is a proponent of genocide. You may have missed it, but a fair number of gays and lesbians oppose the transgender movement because of its sexualization of children. He went on to write, most conservatives I know really don't care what consenting adults do with one another. If you don't believe that, perhaps you should meet more conservatives. There's a whole world outside the echo chamber. He said, as you prepared to apologize to parents whose only crime was not wanting their children to be exposed to pornography or racial hatred, are you willing to make amends with them after governments attack them for simply wanting to keep their children safe? Do you believe it was just, proper, and right to expose small children to sexually charged drag shows? He wrote, what help will you offer those whose minds, souls, and bodies begin to break down from surgeries, drugs, and hormones? What aid will you give to the detransitioners? He said, what reconciliation will you offer to the women who became second-class citizens behind men who wanted to compete in women's sports, haunt women's bathrooms, and engage in their fetishes? How will you reach out to the girls injured by men playing in women's sports, or to Riley Gaines forced to hide from a crowd of thugs lusting for her blood? All good questions. He kind of wrapped things up saying, you seem to care about immigration a great deal. Will you work to stop the flow of fentanyl across the border? Will you help those Americans in Chicago, New York, and other blue cities who have found themselves unable to access housing, food, or medical care because governments have prioritized illegal immigrants? A lot of good questions for the good bishop. Wonder if she'll ever respond. Wonder if she has the answers. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. It's good to be back home from Washington. Boy, it was tough getting back home yesterday. A lot of snow in the southeast, of course, which kind of jammed. Our flight from D.C. was routed through Atlanta. Atlanta was chaos. And our flight, which we should have been back home by around 7:30 or so, ended up getting back at midnight. So this is an early morning. It was a long night for sure, but I'm happy to be back. But boy, what a great time we had celebrating the presidency of Donald Trump. On the text line, Ray says, welcome back to God's country, Joey. I still can't believe we won and all the wonderful changes made to our country. I like so many others, want retribution against the scumbags who attacked our president. However, with the pardons that's not going to happen. Now we all must move forward and repair the damage done to our country by the Bidens. If we really examine the actions of the previous administration, we can see that the power behind the throne is Dr. Jill. The last hill to climb is getting Bondi and Petal confirmed. Then we'll have a justice system that is just. Thank God for helping us. David writes, I was up all night driving a truck, so I listened every bit of it. I think he's talking about the replay of the president's speech. I think America finally woke up and put Trump back where he belongs in the presidency. I think you're right there, David. Paul writes, I'm disappointed that Justice Roberts started the swearing in of Trump before Melania was in place with the Bibles, so Trump ended up not putting his hand on the Bibles. It's not required by law, so the ceremony was true. We now have a great president. There's been a lot written about that, and a lot of people misunderstood that. A lot of people have fallen for the left-wing media's criticism of Trump, saying, oh, well, he didn't, he's made such a big deal about his faith, he didn't even put his hand on the Bibles. Well, you understand what happened there, right? The Chief Justice Roberts was hurrying up to try to get things done before the 12 noon deadline, and he rushed, and the Trump family just wasn't able to get in place. Melania had a hard time getting over there, and by the time she did, the president just didn't think about it, I'm sure. I mean, you're standing there in front of the world. Faye writes, Joey, I figured out why we're having all this cold air. All the hot air has left D.C. You may be right there, Faye. And with our blessing, glad you and Peg are home safely. Thank you, Faye. Appreciate that. A texter, exciting, historic day. Praise God. Thank you, Joey. Thank you for all you did to help make this possible. May God bless you in America. Enjoy MAGA 2.0. May God help us make America godly again. Now, that's something I can agree with. Tony writes, Joey, are you as happy as I am to see Big Daddy back in charge? A real leader, a patriot. God bless the USA. Your text are welcome. You can always email me too, joey@joeyhudson.com. You know, some liberals were starting to freak out when they were receiving social media posts in their news feeds from President Trump. Facebook and Instagram users may have been surprised to find posts from President Donald Trump or Vice President J.D. Vance on their feeds. But according to Meta, this routine transfer of ownership of the White House social media sites has put a lot of people who are left-leaning liberals who had liked either Joe Biden's Facebook page or Instagram account or Vice President Kamala Harris's. Now they were getting posts from J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, and it kind of pushed them over the edge. Well, those accounts are archived. If you still want to know what Joe Biden's thinking or what Kamala Harris is thinking, they have accounts like the White House archived and the Vice President archived, that type of thing, if you want to go searching for it. But some liberals started complaining to Facebook and to Instagram and to X. X is pretty much the same thing, because they didn't want to get some of the posts from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Spokesperson Andy Stone addressed the confusion in a post on X yesterday, explaining that Meta's standard practice during presidential transitions. Stone wrote that with the POTUS and White House accounts, that they're managed by the White House and they change when the occupant of the White House changes. If users follow these accounts during one administration, they will continue to follow them even when the administration turns over, which is what, of course, just happened. Upon taking office, Trump and his team automatically assumed the @POTUS, the @White House, the @VP, and the @FLOTUS. These accounts of previous administrations, they were archived. So if you want to see those old posts, that's what you got to do. But, you know, hey, who wants to? The scene outside of the D.C. jail yesterday was one of jubilation for some of the newly pardoned January 6th defendants and their supporters. It, of course, is a significant moment for these folks following President Donald Trump's sweeping clemency for individuals charged or convicted in connection with the Capitol protest. For many, the pardon represented an end to what was just a nightmare for them. William Sarsfields, a Texas man convicted of obstruction and misdemeanor charges related to the Capitol breach, expressed his gratitude after being released from jail and joining the rally in D.C. He said, "I'm very blessed that President Trump kept his word to the American people." Federal prosecutors began dropping charges for those still awaiting trial, including Frederick Breitfelder and Jorge Fournier, both accused of violent actions during the riot. High-profile defendants like Stuart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers, the militia group, were also freed. Rhodes, previously sentenced to 18 years for seditious conspiracy, joined the crowd outside of the jail, calling the pardons a good day for America. Now, some Republican senators are struggling with this decision and don't like the optics of some of the people who were released. Of course, the Democrat senators, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, called the move deeply un-American. House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries accused Trump and his allies of abandoning their back the blue stance, saying far-right extremists have become the party of lawlessness and disorder. How can you not support the men and women in blue? Trump, of course, defended his actions, framing the January 6th defendants as victims of a biased justice system, which they were. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.